Over the past few years, the popularity of tofu has grown exponentially. Vegans and other communities have talked about how meat is murder, switching to tofu as an alternative. But is tofu really sustainable? According to research, tofu also comes after a long process of destroying forests and the murder of many creatures' habitats. Harvard entomologist Piotr Naskrecki described the process of making tofu for consumption as involuntary bioslaughter. He went on to explain why this is. If you didn't know already, the food item is grown widely in Brazil. This is because there are massive soy plantations everywhere in the country, stretching from end to end. The issue with these soy plantations is that they come at the cost of thousands of acres of rainforests in Brazil, which used to be thriving once upon a time. Considering that the country has, or used to have, a lot of rainforests, the loss of them has resulted in the loss of many species' natural habitats. As I just said, Brazil cleared a lot of land for these plantations. Let's look at the exact numbers.
It made a huge difference in how we can manage those beans from a weed control standpoint, and as time has moved on, we've gotten more and more beans as we move.
Back in 2015, Brazil was the second largest producer of soybeans in the entire world, right behind the US. In that season alone, the USDA predicted that they would allot a record 31.5 million hectares for these plantations and produce almost 95.5 million tons of soybeans. This was barely 10 years ago, and now Brazil is the largest grower of soybeans in the whole world, producing 353,463,735 tons in 2020 alone. The rapid growth of the industry is good for business. There's no doubt about that. But that's the only thing it's good for. The rapidly growing pieces of land that are being allocated for plantations to grow soybeans are clearing rainforests in one of the most biodiverse countries in the whole world. If soy cultivation in the Amazon forest keeps growing at the same rate, in a few years, almost 40 species of plants and animals are expected to go completely extinct. Our planet can only survive for so long if humans keep destroying it the way they are. The Amazon forest is important not only to Brazil, but the entire world because of the many purposes it serves for our ecosystem. For example, it's a huge carbon sink. According to research by scientists, 80,000 types of plants help to absorb over 2 billion tons of CO2 every single year. You can thank nature for creating this complete system that helps to offset global warming, the one that mankind is directly responsible for. Humans should be grateful that the Earth has a system in place for disasters like global warming, which naturally brings down the level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Instead, they're just hell-bent on destroying the whole thing. If you need some more details on how exactly this destruction happens because of tofu production, it's a long process. Here's what happens. The way the land is cleared for soy crops basically just digs up and removes all the plants and soil that help to trap and reduce carbon dioxide in the air. Of course, when this happens, all the stored chemical goes straight back up to the Earth's atmosphere, making global warming much worse. It's pretty ironic to think about, especially because these forests were supposed to be nature's way of stopping global warming, not making it worse. Unfortunately, the rainforests aren't the only part of nature that is affected by the land being cleared. Even the Cerrado, which happens to be a savanna region across a quarter of Brazil, suffers too. Once again, the Cerrado is probably one of, if not the most, diverse ecosystems on Earth. How does the soy industry impact it? Soy plantations have been growing in the Cerrado for the past few years, but between the years 2002 and 2008, 14,000 square kilometers per year were lost. Once again, these aren't small numbers, and they mean bad news for the 32 endangered species of animals in the savanna. Even the diverse native plant species are at risk for only one kind of plant. The local people used to rely on these for their sources of food, and now they can't even do that. The worst part about all this is that the plant and animal species cannot thrive anywhere else in the world, let alone exist. Soy production is pretty high everywhere in the world, and the demand has increased most dramatically over the past few years. But one thing most people might not know is that it's not tofu production or any other products that come from soybeans that drive the demand. Shockingly, the meat industry is the one that demands the most soy products. Here's why this happens. When it comes to where the majority of soy that's grown goes, it's probably going to be used for livestock, more specifically for feeding livestock. Yep, you heard that right. Everything from pork, cattle, fish, and poultry depends on soy-based products for animal feed. Another surprising statistic is that soy products like tofu or dairy-free milk and other fake meat products make up only 6% of the demand for soybean. It's insane to think about. It's not like tofu is directly killing the environment. The cultivation of its raw materials is what's causing these issues, and they can't be ignored for much longer. The environmental impact of this needs to be taken seriously. Scientists have done a ton of research and proves that soy is a super legume that has many advantages for the health of humans. The way the demand for it has grown, though, has caused a lot of environmental destruction. You can see how Brazil has changed just because of it. Unfortunately, the meat industry is the one driving its demand, generating almost 617 million GBP in revenue in 2020. That's insane, considering there was a huge economic slowdown because of the pandemic that year, and the industry still did well. The truth is, if soy was used only by humans, the environmental impact would be next to zero. But because of the scale of the industry now, it's responsible for the destruction of many plants and even the natural habitats of animals. The soy industry contributes to environmental damage in more than one way. Let's look at the impact it has on the soil. Growing soy requires a lot of water, more than growing any other legume or plant in general. Unfortunately, this also means that it makes it difficult for water to seep back through the earth. Because of all this, a lot of water is lost, and that has a devastating impact because the local people need that water, as well as the flora and fauna of the area. New soy has to be planted across larger areas to meet the continuously growing demand for soy. The space needed to produce soy globally covers the entirety of Germany, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Imagine the environmental damage. If that wasn't enough to put into perspective why soy is bad for the environment, this might be. Soy is the second largest agricultural driver of deforestation, following closely after beef. After all of this, if you're wondering what's worse, meat or tofu, the answer is a bit complicated. People have different opinions about the whole debate. For example, a lot of studies that have been conducted say that meat is probably the one good group that damages the environment the most. Other people, like farmers, think that tofu and similar non-meat products are worse. Dr. Graham McAuliffe spoke about this at the National Farmers Union and said that tofu impacts the environment in a worse way than chicken or pork or beef. He went on to say that soy-based products are processed and have so much energy going into making it. When you compare this to meat, it's ready to eat with no processing required. Plus, tofu really doesn't have digestible protein. That's how, according to people in the soy industry, its byproducts are more harmful to the environment and contribute to global warming more than meat. It seems like tofu might now be as sustainable after all, especially considering these factors. See you in the next video.